What makes you write a song?
A lot of the times I feel like the song writes itself. I've never gone into a songwriting process where I'm like, okay, I will sit, I'll pick up the guitar, and for the next 3 hours, I will spend writing a song. Maybe I should be doing that more often, but I don't. A lot of the times, I'm going through something in my life, maybe something that I saw on the news, or maybe something personally in my relationships, or the way I look at life. And these sort of themes are probably what motivates and encourages me.
Mahesh, how many songs have you written?
I don't know, maybe about 70 to 80 songs.
Wow. Hey guys, welcome to Art and Culture Tribe. I hope you guys are doing well. Today we have with us an amazing singer-songwriter. He has amazing bunch of songs. He's also a vocal coach. You want to know who it is? Let's check it out. So let's welcome my dear friend Mahesh Raghunandan. Hello, Mahesh. How
Hi
are you?
Dinkar, how are you doing?
I'm very good, brother. How are you?
I'm doing good. It's been a long time since I've seen you, so I'm glad to be here. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for being here.
Sure.
We're so honored.
For sure.
So what's happening? How have you been?
Um, it's been going good. I guess I've been working on some new music. I've been working with a lot of musicians on their EPs and recordings and things like that. So yeah, it's been exciting. I think the next year is looking optimistic, and I am looking forward to releasing lots of new music. So that's what's been going on, I guess.
Great. Okay. So Mahesh, we would like to know a lot about you, and so let's begin with first of all, how would you define Mahesh Raghunandan as a musician?
Um, I don't know. I guess somebody who writes stories and songs and thoughts about what he's experiencing in his life, and exploring what he can do with sounds.
Okay.
I guess it's sort of weird to speak in third person, I must say. So to begin with, I would I would describe Mahesh Raghunandan as hustling and working away as usual. But beyond that, somebody who likes to express himself through sounds.
Okay. So, did you learn the guitar? How did you pick up the instrument?
Um, I was interested in music ever since I was a kid.
Okay.
But I think my interest really peaked in high school, which is when I picked up the guitar, and I went to guitar lessons for about 4 to 6 months. And at the same time, I was exposed largely to the pop music of the time. So I used to fall asleep to Radio City and Radio Indigo, doing their charts like Ryan Seacrest and Casey Kasem. Late at night, they would go through the, charting the top, songs of the day. And I was largely exposed to the kind of music that I write through that. And I think over time, I think sometime when I was like 15 years old is when I heard John Mayer for the first time. And that was like a very huge moment for me. I think his music really affected me beyond just the music. Like I was fascinated by what he's saying through the words, and I was very I was very touched by the kind of songs that he was writing, and I think that was a new feeling for me to connect with music in that way. That's where my music journey probably began, and I started writing more songs, exploring more with my instrument, with my voice, with the guitar, and yeah. So that was the start of everything. I think that's what's led me to here.
Okay. Talking about City, it reminds me that back then, I think how they curated the playlist was very good.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think there was a diversity in the kind of music that they would put. Even within pop music, you would have uh, bands like Creed, which is like, a little more heavier than your regular pop these days. But then, you would, and My Chemical Romance, and, like a lot more heavier and punk and emo, all that sort of music, and, and classic rock and roll, and musicians like Coldplay, early Coldplay musicians, even like Westlife and Backstreet Boys. And,
Yeah.
I think that had a big influence on me as a child. And I'm very lucky that I was listening to radio during a time where they would
Play
be
good
playing
stuff,
so
yeah.
many different kinds of music. I think that
Absolutely.
had a huge impact on me as a musician, for sure.
Okay. Do you have a specific genre that you're inclined to?
Um, Not particularly, but so I've my music that I write for myself, like as Mahesh the artist, I guess it falls more under singer songwriter, little bit of indie folk, pop sensibilities, a little bit of soul sensibilities. But I have worked on projects such as my work with Blushing Satellite, which was purely a psychedelic funk
Yeah.
band, and even in my EP, except we were intent on exploring different sonic influences, different sort of vibes that captured the kind of music that I used to listen to when I was younger. And so, yeah, I guess it's a mix of everything. And I'm
Okay.
always open to experimenting as well. So, so I guess that's that.
Okay. Do you have any memory of your first song that you've written?
Yes, I do. That's a funny memory, I must say, because it's also one of the most embarrassing lyrics that I've written, at least for me.
Okay.
If I remember right, it was the chorus of it went, I wish every day was like this. Green trees and blue skies, pretty girls passing by. I was like 15 years old. And so I do remember the first song, I guess. But yeah, so I wrote my first song when I was 15 years old.
Wow.
And it was very funny.
But I'm glad that you started back then.
Yep.
That is so cool.
You had a lot of time to get less shitty. So yeah, I'm glad I started early too.
I've been asking people about the first song, and everybody has a certain, memory with that. And I think everybody's like, okay, it's not the best, but yeah, I've written something like that.
Right.
And I do ask them, are you going to like release it? I'm not so sure, but I was like, give it a shot, see what
Right.
you can do with
Of
that.
course,
Yeah,
yeah.
right. So how, post that first song, what made you, get into music so deeply? And, what makes you write a song?
I think the first John Mayer song that I heard was Gravity. And I think if I heard some other song, which was a lot more popular at the time for him, I wouldn't have been affected by it in the way that I was with that song. It sort of had a um, I did not understand what the words exactly meant, but the sounds and what he's trying to say was so fascinating. I wanted to know more, and like gravity is working against me. That's like such an interesting way to say I'm going through a tough time in my life, and that was like, oh, you can express yourself that way. I think that was the moment where my journey with music became a lot more deeper. But although after that, in the next few years, the music that I listened to, like Stevie Wonder, Frank Sinatra, Chet Baker, really singer songwriters, Nick Drake, Stevie Ray Vaughan, B.B. King, Buddy Guy, all these sort of vast influences, different kinds of music, incredible musicianship, being exposed to music like that made me a lot more serious about what I'm doing with my skill and my art. Until then, it was more like, yeah, I can sing. Like I can sing and I can impress people. Or, I can stay in pitch in such a way that people will look at me, and I can extract attention out of people. But I think then when I started listening to all these musicians, is when it became a little more personal. I wanted to say things for myself. I wanted to say things that were happening in my life, but I didn't necessarily have the right person to communicate that to. So it was like an avenue for me to speak about things
Yeah.
that maybe I wouldn't have been able to talk about with
Correct.
a friend or a family member. So it was like part of growing up,
Okay.
I would say.
Okay.
Yeah.
You've grown up pretty much in Bangalore?
Yes, I basically was born in Mangalore, but I've been here all my life. And I grew up a large part in the edge of Bangalore, in Yelahanka, North Bangalore, by the forest. I believe, like, even the place and, the small town sort of vibe to early to 2010, Yelahanka had a huge impact because, you didn't have a lot of friends. And, the thing that you do is go out for bicycle rides and have a hobby of some sort. So, yeah, sorry, I'm giving long answers to
No,
your
no, no,
short
no,
questions,
no, no.
but
Please don't worry
coming
about
back to
it.
it, yes, I'm pretty much from Bangalore.
Okay. When you decided to take music as a professional career, what, how, were your parents okay? Because this is something I would
Oh,
like
not
to
at
know.
all.
Okay.
Oh, not at all. My parents had been very against my heightened interest in music from the get go. One, because I was good with my grades when I was younger, and they did not want that to be affected. On the other hand, they saw me with every year getting more and more into it. And especially when college started, is when I started getting gigs. So I started a little early as far as those gigs are concerned. And so it was definitely an interesting time. I think I had a large fight with my parents where I said, I don't care what you guys say, I'm going to do music. And, if there are consequences, if you feel that there's an inconvenience that would be caused because of it, I will do something about it. And, so you have no say in what I'm trying to do here. And I guess, that sort of really solidified my intention to pursue music and do something with it, like seriously with my life. And yeah, so I think that progressed gradually into more and more gigs, me performing outside of Bangalore, and my principal in college giving me permission to tour. And things just escalated more and more. And I graduated. I worked as a .NET developer for a year after my graduation. And I think that's when I realized that that's definitely something not for me. And I took the big leap to quit that particular job and really pursue music as a full-time profession. And I had a lot riding on it, because when I quit my job, my IT job, I still had the student loans that I'd taken for my master's degree, by my bachelor's degree. Excuse me, I don't have a master's degree, um, because I chose music. But my bachelor's degree, and I knew that if I am to pursue music, I have to do it in a way where I'm not really kidding myself that, oh, I'm singing songs and I'm, reaching so and so fans. I had bills to pay. I had things to, take care of. And that really motivated me into taking this so seriously, that this is all that I do now. This is pretty much my entire life, just surrounded by music and musicians.
Okay. Mahesh, how many songs have you written?
Songs that are completed and released, or just in general?
In general.
I don't know, maybe about 70
Wow.
to 80 songs.
Okay.
And maybe about one third of them are unfinished, or not necessarily satisfactorily finished.
Okay.
But yeah, so about 70 to 80 songs, I would say.
That's like 8 albums. Almost.
Sure. Yeah. Or do it also contains little tunes that you do for commission. I'm incorporating that as well.
Okay.
For example, during the pandemic, I worked for this American company called Song Glorious, which is basically a website where people can go pick the artist and say, hey, it's my husband's birthday, can you write a song for me?
Okay.
And so I wrote a lot of music through that as well. But by and large, I think 70 to 80 would be a good number to put it.
Okay.
Yeah, put it there.
What makes you write a song? How do you get in? Does it something inspire you? or you just like, okay, today I think I'm feeling this way, let me
Right.
write about it?
It's rarely the latter. Um, a lot of the times, I feel like the song writes itself in the sense that um, I've never gone into a songwriting process where I'm like, okay, I will sit, I'll pick up the guitar, and for the next 3 hours, I will spend writing a song. Maybe I should be doing that more often, but I don't. A lot of the times, I'm I'm going through something in my life, maybe something that I saw on the news, or maybe something personally in my relationships, or the way I look at life. And these sort of themes are probably what motivates and encourages me to take a bunch of chords with which I'm jamming and just humming something random, and take that into a story where I want to express what I'm feeling. And it happens on its own, because I never know what I'm writing about until I start writing about it, which is an interesting thing, because I think after me sitting with the guitar for a while, and playing a bunch of sounds, and then that subconsciously feeding what I'm feeling at the time. Maybe if I were to play the same chords the next day, I won't feel the same sort of feeling. I won't be as annoyed about it, or it gives me an annoying feeling. It gives me a happy feeling. It gives me a sad feeling. I think that drives me to write and add more detail to the song, if you will. Um, Largely, I would say that a need to express myself has always been in the center of my songwriting. There's been periods where I've not written songs for not written a song for a year sometimes, so and that happens, and then something changes in life, and there you are back again, in an empty, lonely room, thinking about life, and doing something about it, I guess.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll ask you something weird. Do you write happy songs?
I do.
Okay.
I do. Of late, I think while I was younger, a lot of my songs would deal with my early symptoms of depression, or my bad relationships, or what was going on in the world at the time. But off late, the songs that I write are a lot about acceptance, and a lot about even if I'm talking about a sad thing, I write songs that made me learn something. For
Correct.
example, Realize. That was one of the recent releases. And I say recent, it's in the past 2 years
Okay.
that I released, which was like a live performance in the middle of the forest where in Yelahanka. And that song is about the moment you end a relationship and what you feel at the time. But the song is talking about the things that I learned at the time. How did that make me a person that's more mature, or maybe who's wiser because of that incident. So I write sad songs, I write happy songs, I write sad songs in a happy way. I'm not sure if I have a happy song in a sad way, but that should definitely be something to explore.
Okay. Cool. There's one particular song that is one of my favorite.
Yeah.
That is something that I'd heard probably 6 years back.
Yeah.
Make Your Move.
Make Your Move. Right.
Yeah. And one of the things that is really stuck with me, the way you start the guitar. It's, the chord progression is, at least for me, it is very unique.
Sure.
Right? So how do you come up with these chord progressions?
This is going to be a very bad answer, I
Okay.
must say, because I do not suggest this in any way. But a lot of the times, because I've come from a place where I've not been formally trained in music, but the things that I've learned are things that I've picked up along the way, working with musicians, collaborating with musicians, being in bands, and I feel like my ears are better than how much I understand music and music theory.
Okay.
And so a lot of the times I'll be playing a bunch of chords, and I might literally go, I do not like that note. Sure, it's a chord, it's fine. It's not like wrong in any way, but that note there is something that is not sitting well, and I would play around and I would move shapes around. And I think that's how I found, in retrospect, much later on, people who I worked with, musicians I worked with, told me these are like diminished chords, these are like -7 flat 5 chords, and I'm like, oh, okay. But I think it was, I came up with these sounds, in a way, intuitively, but in a way, working it out note by note, and in a way having a sense of like, I know this chord will move nicely to this one, probably because I might have, I might have played it before, or I might have played it, but I don't know where I have. Like, it's just the hands, the muscle
Correct.
memory has it.
Correct.
A lot of the times, I feel like my intuition is driving my songwriting process in that sense, which is also why I might consider myself not as good a guitar player as good as I am a singer. But I'm trying to do something about it. So, accountability here. I'm practicing, okay.
Okay. So, what is your, not just guitars, but
Yeah.
what is your vocal practice like on a daily basis?
Off late, a large part of my weekdays are spent teaching students how to sing. So I have a vocal coaching business called Rewire the Voice, where I work with indie musicians, playback singers, and just all kinds of musicians who are working on their upcoming projects, or who are serious hobbyists, or who are working on their recording or concerts and things like that.
Correct.
So I feel like a big chunk of my practice goes or is done in that time, teaching them.
Yeah.
I think that's made me a much better singer than I could have ever been doing it on my own.
Okay.
But my warm-up routine generally would involve a whole bunch of breathing exercises, because I believe that's where like most of the problems start and most of the problems end as far as singing is concerned. I do some stretches and exercising to get the blood flowing. I think that's very helpful, because a lot of the time singing is like an intensive task, but your body is lethargic sometimes, and you don't realize how much effort you need to put in in order to make that particular sound. And I have generally, like, vocal exercise are a bunch of goofy sounds that you do, and like annoy your neighbors and embarrass your wives. So lip rolls is a very important exercise that I teach and that I also practice. And so my routine is sporadic at the moment, but it would involve these sort of vocal techniques and exercises that sort of makes me warm up my voice in the way that I do.
Okay. Now, since you mentioned that you're also a vocal coach, is there anything that you've unlearned while teaching that you felt was like, okay, I was doing this wrong?
Absolutely. I think I'm doing that every day. But a large part of it would be, when I was younger, I believed that singing powerfully and, like a rock singer, like belting it, is to put a lot of effort and, like putting a lot of energy into the sound. And over time, I have realized, in the past decade, I've realized how it's exactly the opposite. It's the art of learning how to keep all the energy inside, so that you can, like take that energy and power the engine, which is your voice. And so I think that's the way that I approach my higher range, the way that I approach pitching and, being accurate with the pitching. I think there is a big notion in the singing community that it's okay to sing a little off live. But I feel like, it's there's no excuse for it for another instrument, right? So if your guitarist is playing a solo and from some random sound comes in, you clearly realize that's something that you don't want to do.
Yeah.
But with singing, it was a lot more looser, and I did not necessarily enjoy that prospect. And I think over time I've realized, okay, my instrument has buttons, I can press it, and if I do correctly, it'll hit the correct note every single time. I don't have to leave it to chance. And I think that leaving it to chance, being nervous before you go up on stage and playing a gig, that's gone away. I feel like, I'm very comfortable going on stage knowing that this is the palette of sounds that I can make and I can choose from, enough to be able to even improvise a little bit of the performance of the same songs that I'm singing. And so it makes things a little more fun. It makes things exciting, especially when you're on tour. You're singing the same songs largely, and it can become a little dry. And I feel like the way that I have changed my point of view on singing has allowed me to look at it much differently.
Okay. In your, as you were growing, were you worried about a certain kind of, not worried about, let me say, but did you have a vocal texture in your mind, or was it like, this is how I'm going to sound, and this is how it is? Because I'll tell you another
Sure.
thing. Because when I started singing,
Yep.
obviously you listen to a bunch of vocalists, and you try to sing, and you realize that you're going to sound somewhere like that. Has that happened to you when you started?
Yes. So I felt like, because like when I started out, like a lot of audiences and the people who listen to my songs, whether I was playing it live or whatever, started having an opinion about it. Oh, that voice is so nice. I think I was influenced by that, that notion, that suggestion, that opinion, that feedback. And I would go into this husky voice, this texture, and I thought and I believed that that's where my musicality lies. But over time, that has changed completely. In fact, the way that I teach my students how to sing is sort of like a unique approach on its own, where I teach my students to use their voice just like any other musical instrument. And what I mean by that is, if you take any musical instrument, it has three ingredients largely that it plays around with. Three ingredients of sound. One is volume, how quiet or how loud you can go. Another one is pitch. The number of frets you have, or how low or how high you can go with pitch. The other one is tone or texture. How bassy or how trebly you can be, right? So, and with all the other instruments, we learn to explore and expand the entirety of these, possibilities of colors that you have in your volume knob, in your pitch knob, in your tone knob. But when it comes to the voice, there seems to be a very different approach to it, or rather, I thought that there was, and I want to change that. So now, how I look at the voice is, me is all the sounds that I can make. It's not a specific texture of my voice, which is going to be described as Mahesh, but all the volumes that I can create, all the pitches, all the tonalities. I want to be able to explore and move across all of them, and I want that entirety of what that is to be described as Mahesh. And so now my approach to singing is much different. And also, I think a huge influence a big thing that led me to thinking that way is Ramanan Chandramouli and the band Blushing Satellite, who I worked with in 2017, as well as Leslie Charles, who produced that particular album for Blushing Satellite, as well as my EP, Accept. But coming back to Blushing Satellite, he was very particular. He was the band leader, and he was very particular about this part of the song needs to sound like flutes. Do something with your voice to emulate flutes in the background. I don't want to, I want it more from a sonic perspective. I want this part to sound like violins. And I had to really ask myself, like, what do you mean?
Yeah.
Like, I know how to sing well the way I sing it, but I don't know how to sing well the way you describe it. And so there was this gap, and I had to listen to flutes and hear, okay, what is it about it that is fluty? What is it about the strings or violins that's stringy?
Yeah.
And you see that the hollow hootiness in the flute, or the trebly, the texture of the strings coming in. There's these subtleties that are there, and I started like becoming more interested in those subtleties. So a big thank you and gratitude to those people like Rama, Leslie, and the entire Blushing Satellite gang, actually, who have led me to look at my singing the way that I do now.
Okay. Now, for younger audience, people who want to find their voice.
Yep.
because there's so much music out there, so many great singers, and we always want to, like, for example, I was one of the biggest fans of Chester Bennington.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah.
And there were times that I would try to, sing like that. But then I realized that, okay, I may not be able to sing like that. And by pressurizing myself to get into that zone might cause, damages here.
Totally.
Right?
Absolutely.
So, for people who love to sing, but who aren't sure of what their voice is, how would you tell them how to go forward from there, from that thought process?
One is to not fall into the trap of you have to sound like a certain way. Like a lot of people, so there's an exercise where you explore your entire range. So it sort of sounds like this. You. And every single time, like when you go high into that place, a lot of singers feel like, oh, that's not my voice. It's not a ghost making sound, right? It's coming out of your body. So it is your voice. It is a part of your sound. So when you fall into this trap of, I need to sound like this and this only, I feel like you're limiting yourself in the playground that you're playing in. And so that would be the first step, to be open to explore all kinds of sounds, even if it sounds bad at that time. I think John Mayer put it really well. It is the failure to sound like my heroes that has made me the person who sounds like, made my music sound like the way it does. And so never take it too seriously that I need to sound like that, I need to become. So that's one. The second thing is trust your body, trust your voice. If your voice or if your body is hurting when you make a sound, that's your body telling you stop doing it.
Okay.
Right? So it's like if you step on a thorn, you lift your leg. You don't continue walking on. Now that's the response that's been, like designed through evolution for so many years, thousands of years, right? So a lot of singers tend to overexert their voice. Like I said earlier, that I would do that as well. With these two things in mind, do not sing only as comfortable as your voice can be, and do not be afraid to find a sound that might not sound like your favorite singer or the large amount of music, mainstream music that is out there. But go beyond. I think that's what Jimi Hendrix did with the guitar, and that's what Frank Zappa, David Bowie, all of them sort of explored music without necessarily thinking, okay, I need to emulate that.
Yeah.
And so I think that would be my advice as well.
Okay, that's awesome. Coming to your vocal coaching.
Yep.
There are a lot of kids that take your classes. Do parents get involved in the process?
Well, at the moment, I have no young students that I'm working with, but yes, I have worked with many kids in the vocal coaching career that I've had. Particularly now, I've not been able to spend time working with kids because like a large part of my clientele are like professional musicians working on their projects.
Wonderful.
Although I was a vocal supervisor for this children's media company called Wobble.
Okay.
And they did a whole bunch of recordings for which I was a vocal super. I helped them warm up before the performance, and then was at the studio helping them through the whole recording process. The parents back in the day when I used to teach in a music school used to get involved only as much as the kid complains. I believe, I don't know if it's a pattern, but I believe a lot of kids that are sent to music schools are in a way for the parents to be, for the kid to be excused so that the parents can have a bunch of time for themselves.
Okay.
The reason why I say that is 70% of the kids that were coming to classes at the music school that I was teaching at many years ago were those who were not necessarily fully interested in music. And when parents did get involved, it was because the kid was absolutely invested and committed and super curious about the act of singing.
Okay.
And that always felt great.
Okay.
You know, I felt like the parents getting involved allowed me to teach in such a way that, you know, I'm not thinking, okay, they're just like here for like half an hour and they'll go. They really wanted things to learn. They really wanted to get better. They want to do something about the voice. I feel like parents get involved and invested when the kid is as committed or curious about music or singing. So
Okay.
yeah. Although I must say about teaching kids, I think teaching kids was one of the best things that could have happened to me in my teaching journey, because if it's a professional musician or somebody who's an adult, explaining things to them is easy. You can use fancy language, you can use vocabulary, technical terms, and this and that to explain, and you would be able to get through to them. But with students, with kids rather, number one, you need to make it interesting. You need to captivate. You need to capture their attention. And number two, you need to express it and, like teach them in a way that is extremely easy and simple to understand. So things like visualizations became a strong part of my vocal coaching, because, I would ask the kids to like imagine a glowing ball, as you're going higher, imagine it going up. And these sort of, visual mental constructs became a larger part of my teaching because I started doing that with kids and I saw that it was effective.
Okay.
And so kids are absolutely a test, for the teacher, as far as how well they can teach or how well they can get across to the student, how well that the student is responding because you're saying something or teaching something.
Can you share a little more light on visualization?
Sure.
Yeah.
So generally, singing is all musical instruments involve this, but singing in particular, because it's a human instrument, it's fitted inside of you. One of the ways that you communicate with your voice is through physical sensations, right? So, for example, the way I communicate with my hand is I move it around and I can feel and I can confirm that my hand is moved. And so when you're teaching how to sing, a large part of it involves you paying attention to how your body feels or how your body does not feel. For example, if it's too tense, you need to be able to detect it. And if it's a certain coordination, you need to be able to feel it as its own unique experience. So what I use in order to enable that is visualization. So I would go, if I were to ask you for 30 seconds, you can close your eyes and not think about an elephant behind the two eyes that you have. An elephant will just keep showing up. Right? So I would use that mental concept and I would go, okay, do the exercise now and tell me if the back of your throat is feeling so and so, or can you tell me the buzzing bee that's in the back of your throat, is it going up, is it going down, can you tell me? So I'm not talking to them in like, oh, is your mouth tightening up, are you opening? I'm speaking to them in a way where their imagination is adding definition to the real world experience that they're having as far as the tactile experience of the body is concerned. So I would use visualizations are merely mental movies, imaginary movies that you run in your head so that you are forced to pay attention to your body. That's what visualizations are. If I were to ask you to make a sound for 5 seconds and tell me if the tip of your nose is itching or not, for 5 seconds you'll make the sound, but you'll always be, your attention it'll be very hard to distract yourself from the sensation of the tip of your nose. And so it's a very interesting, very cool, very effective way of teaching any bodily activity, bodily skill, athletic skill, but particularly singing, I must say.
Okay, crazy. In terms of music, right? Was your family into any kind of music?
My dad was in the film industry, in the Kannada film industry for a long time as an assistant director. He worked under Vajreshwari Combines of Dr. Rajkumar for 30 years, and then he retired from that field. Although probably that's exactly the reason why he was very against my interest and my, like intentions of going into the music field and the art field, because he knew how inconsistent it was. When movie projects are there, you make money. When it's not, you find other things. So I feel like that had an interesting effect on my music journey, because of the fact that I wanted to prove to my family that no, you can. That's not the only way to go about it. You can do something about it.
Okay.
But yes, so I'm probably the only musician in the family as far as this much level of interest is concerned. But I know my brother plays the ukulele and sings some songs from time to time. But besides that, not really. I think it was a newfound interest in my family as
Okay.
far as music was concerned.
Nice. When you in the beginning of your career, we all have dreams.
Yep.
Okay. Like for example, we close our eyes and think about us being in a big stage and all
Sure.
that, right?
Yep.
I'm sure you've had that.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, in terms of that, how what is reality to that dream compared to?
As in, you would like me to compare that dream and where I am right now,
Yes.
and sort of give
Yes.
a.
Yes.
Well, when I was younger, my dream was to travel the world and sing to as many people as possible. I believed I can make music, I can put it out there, the world will be impressed by how good my music is, and then, life's gonna change. That was the drive for me being a musician when I was younger. Over time, the dream changed.
Yeah.
Of course, the reality changed, but the dream as well changed, because you start realizing there's these real world factors. Like
Correct.
if if you are thinking about like releasing some song, you have a whole bunch of releasing an album. You have a whole bunch of like stuff to do in a studio with a video team, with this, with marketing, paying the distributors, all of these sort of things. And so I realized like, hey, even to break even, how much money I've spent for the album, for that to break even itself is like a, like a big thing as an indie musician. So my dreams turned towards creating meaningful connections with people who understand me through my songs. I feel like the songs themselves have very strong reasons as to why they exist. And I am fortunate enough to have a small but growing fan base which appreciates that, which
Yeah.
appreciates the fact that I'm not bullshitting. I am really, I really wanted to say this, and I really wanted to have this opinion be shown to the world, and this is who Mahesh is. And people find that, okay, so I know Mahesh now a little bit. I know the human Mahesh. And I feel like if I were to gain 1,000 fans who are so attached to what I do, or the kind of music that I make, or the art that I'm sharing, that they would buy my music, that they would come to my gigs, that they would support me in sharing and all of that. That's the dream, dude. I mean, anything from there is like, a new day, a new dream, I guess. But, the 1,000 super fan idea is what I'm chasing right now. That's
Okay.
my dream.
Amazing. When you perform live, what is the most common song that is asked, requested by the audience?
It would be Sleep. Sleep is a song, it's a lullaby. In fact, it was one of those happy songs during sad times, when I was younger, when I wrote that song. And the reason why a lot of people ask that song to be performed is because that is one of the songs that people know me the most for. I think in 2014 or 15, I was at a very good friend's birthday party, and he asked me to sing a song, and I sang Sleep, and somebody decided to record that performance on the phone and share it online, and there were people from all over the world just sharing it, and
Yeah.
people like Dia Mirza sharing it,
I
and
remember. If did Vishal Dadlani
Vishal
get involved?
Dadlani,
Yes, I remember
yes.
that. I
It was
remember
during that time.
I
And,
remember that.
and I feel like, that song really opened up a lot of things for me. And even to this day, there are people who come up saying, hey, play Sleep. At least in Bangalore and in Kochi and places where I have a relatively more fans, I guess. That is the song that is asked the most.
Okay. Right now, what are you working on?
I am working on two new musical projects. I'm working on an album with Anirudh Ravi, who is also the frontman for Cinema of Excess. Beautiful musician, one of my favorite.
Yes, yes,
He's
he's
incredible,
incredible.
right? I'm working on an EP on an album with him. I'm working on an EP that I'm self-producing. So there's a whole bunch of songs, a whole bunch of music that's on the way.
Okay.
A lot of videos, music videos supporting that. A tour next year supporting these musical projects. So
Nice.
I've been working towards putting all of this together.
Okay.
Right now, yeah.
Okay. Since you spoke about Anirudh Ravi, I was part of Cinema Access for the first EP.
Right.
Yeah, and they are incredible musicians, and
Absolutely.
we had Bharat Kashyap as well recently.
Amazing.
We spoke about it, and yes, I did speak to Anirudh, and I told him, I want you to come and talk to us. He's like, Macha, give me 1 year. By then, I'll produce so many songs, and then I'll come. I was like, okay, I'll somehow still try to convince him to come
Right.
and perform, because for me, he is a very unique,
I agree with
unique
you.
artist.
Absolutely. I agree with you. Even Bharat, for that matter, Bharat played with me as well for a good while. We toured and we played a whole bunch of gigs. Were part of my band a few years ago. And I've been a fan of him. I've been a fan of Ani and Cinema of Excess. But coming to Anirudh Ravi particularly, I believe he's one of the best songwriters of this generation for me. I believe, and that's not just in the country. I believe like he's one of the best songwriters, period. And that's my personal opinion. But
It's mine too. It's
Right.
his intensity of saying something is very unique, and it's
absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely, I think he can. The person he is, normally when you speak to him, does not do any justice to the kind of.
he's in disguise.
He's always in disguise.
The artist Anirudh is in disguise.
Right.
Yeah.
But the lyrics themselves are like, I'm constantly annoyed by the fact that, I didn't come up with that shit. How I didn't know you could say that feeling that way. Yeah, I agree with you. He's just released something, and I'm very grateful that he's part of this project,
Yeah,
and
amazing.
and we're working on this together.
Okay.
Hopefully I get to be involved in future projects of his as well. Ani, I'm just like putting it on camera so that you're forced to do it. But yeah, I hope so.
Yeah. So, are there any timelines for these releases?
Early next year, there is a musical project that's releasing. I'm saying musical project because I'm not sure whether it's going to be an EP or an album.
Okay.
There is a music video on the way. There is a live performance video on the way in the next 1 or 2 months, and these are songs that I may have released in the past, but a lot of people may not know about. So I'm bringing all these songs that I've released in the past into the foreground before I release some new music. So it's like, gathering the crowd before actually giving the announcement. Yes, so I have a whole bunch of stuff in the next coming months, weeks and months actually.
Okay. Cool. Talking about venues.
Yep.
A lot of venues have cut down.
Yep.
Some of them have closed, and fortunate is B flat and Humming Tree
Yep.
not being there.
Yeah.
How do you react to something like that, where you've grown up watching artists, you've
Yep.
performed there,
Yep.
and I think they had one of the amazing crowds who were so supportive of the
Right.
kinds of songs that
Right.
was out there.
Right.
Yeah, and now I feel it's injustice for music lovers.
Totally.
That there is no venue that is. Of course, there are venues, but they come with their own agenda,
Exactly.
and I don't mean it in a bad way.
Sure.
So I'm just trying to understand, because me thinking about not being able to go to a place to enjoy music,
Yep.
the kind of music that I want to listen to is, for me, is heartbreaking.
Right.
Because like I told you, the initial stages of where the doors of indie music opened to me, and I realized this is crazy. This is
Sure.
a totally different world.
Absolutely. I totally 100% agree with you. And I feel heartbroken by the fact that these venues aren't around anymore. Not just because of the fact that they're literally the birthplace of my music career. I remember I had a very bad gig early, like 15 years ago, at some startup festival in some afternoon, where like these venues were had come together to discuss about Bangalore city culture and things like that. And because of that gig, both Nikhil Barua, who founded Humming Tree, as well as Aarti Rao, came up to me and gave their cards and saying, "We'd love to have you play." And that's how my journey with gigs began, period. So I'm absolutely grateful to both of those people and both of those venues for where I am today. I would be nowhere, honestly. For one reason, one of the reasons is that because it's like it means everything to me, these venues. But the other is, just like you said, that they're venues now, but they might have different motivations as to why they're running the venue. And what I mean by that is, I feel like the larger grassroots indie music movement happens in spaces where acoustic music, singer songwriter music, from solo, duo, and beyond is appreciated and encouraged. I feel like even like I've had people, musicians who joined like metal bands, who found their band members in like karaoke open mics and they found their fellow band members in these gigs where they'd come to see some other singer songwriter and whatnot. So I feel like it's a very important thing for music culture, and especially Bangalore music culture, to encourage um, music that are in diverse formats. And B flat as well as Humming Tree did this amazingly well. And I, to the extent that I don't think any other venue these days, or not any other, there might be one or two that actually sort of follow the same principle
Yeah.
as far as
Yeah.
indie music is
Yes.
concerned. Otherwise it becomes a very selective environment where I don't believe the audience is necessarily happy because they're constantly being fed with the same kind of music.
Correct.
While the musicians are disgruntled because there are so many good musicians here.
Yeah.
I know musicians who are much better than me, and but they're still like sitting, in their house just doing more videos because they realize that this is it's a tough journey, tough hustle to get into if you really want to pursue music as a career, especially an indie musician.
Indie musician, yeah.
So yeah, it's very sad, but I hope that changes. I really do hope both Humming Tree and B flat comes back. But I think if there were more venues that sort of carried the legacy of how B flat and Humming Tree handled the music culture and how they propagated it, I feel like we will be a lot better off in this town.
Absolutely. And one of the things, I think is, since, see, what music can be of any type, any style, whether it can be English, Kannada, Hindi, anything.
Sure.
And if it is an independent artist, why, it really surprises me that why wouldn't the government, involve themselves
Totally.
in, because I don't know how much revenue it would generate, but if it is your involvement, if the government's involved,
Yep.
I feel that it can again create more job opportunities.
Absolutely. I mean, if you think about Arunachal, if you think about Nagaland,
Yes.
how Hornbill, how Zero Festival,
Yes.
it's all being pushed by the government to, for economical benefit, but also for, the music culture to thrive.
Exactly.
And I think there is totally room. We have so much music here.
Yes, and a lot of people who went for those festivals, who
Yep.
performed, and as an audience,
Yep.
they told me it was so well organized.
Right.
The setup was great,
Right.
and the hospitality was great.
Yep.
So if I hope somebody listens to us
For
today
sure.
and think about it. It can be a great business model.
Totally.
Right, it's not
agree.
you
Yeah.
are making sure that the artist is getting his dues paid,
Yeah.
and getting works for lighting engineers, managers,
Right.
musicians,
Yeah.
sound engineers, so many.
Absolute. And I think it will help consolidate the demographic that actually listens to indie music.
Yeah.
Because it's all sporadic at the moment.
Correct.
Like different artists have different fan bases, but those fan bases, they're not necessarily cross pollinating into other artists, and into other indie music.
Correct.
So for example, a Pratik Kuhad listener might be very attached to the Pratik Kuhad sound.
Yes.
And that they're not able to see what is out there.
Correct.
It's not their fault, obviously.
Yeah.
But if they're not able to see what other kind of music is out there, they're not being offered the opportunity
Yes.
to expand their ears. And I feel like that's a disservice to the purpose that we have here.
Correct,
As
correct.
as musicians.
Yes.
Yeah.
In my earlier conversation with Sylvester, this is something we also discussed, and
Yeah.
he told me a very interesting thing that
Mm-hmm.
if you want to find yourself,
Yeah.
get involved in different kind of art forms.
Sure.
It may be music, it may be painting, it may be dance,
Totally.
different kinds.
Yep.
And you will find yourself.
Absolutely. I totally agree with that sentiment, because for a long time I thought my role is to go up on stage with my guitar and sing songs. Never thought myself as a vocal coach. And when I did started teaching, I thought this is like something that will help me make money. But this is such an important part of me that, I would never stop teaching, I feel. And the reason why I bring that up in this context is because through that, I have worked with kids for a media company. I did a residency for a couple of months in Mumbai for Drama School Mumbai, where I worked exclusively with actors and theater artists and, working on their voice. I've worked a brief stint with local film music producers, to write lyrics. So there's so many different avenues that you can go to. It does not necessarily have to be music, singing. I think there is a lot more that you can do by combining different, interests together. Like hip hop music is what it is because of the graffiti artists who also were there,
Yeah.
in those, in those battles, in those rap battles.
Correct.
And they pushed that culture,
Correct.
through whatever art that they had that sort of related to associated itself to hip hop culture.
Correct.
I think we need more of that, and we can't have that if nobody tries.
Yeah.
Like a singer songwriter will not get popular because his music videos are this style, this fancy style. If the fancy filmmakers do not collaborate with these musicians, right? And that's sort of like the mindset that I have on this, I guess. There is a lot more to gain by expanding yourself into different avenues as opposed to you losing out on it. Because I feel like a lot of time singers go, I need to practice, I need to do this, I need to do only this, marketing. I don't want to sell myself. No, screw that. I will just, make good music. I will make sure the best people produced it, mixed it, mastered it. I'll put it out, and we start falling into such perspectives about what the industry is, and we don't want to do that.
Correct. Okay, so Mahesh, we have a bunch of questions, and yes, it's not exactly a rapid fire. Okay. I just always tell that so that some people like
Finish it
is
quickly,
a
da.
rapid fire? Yeah. Okay, cool.
No, I was saying that rapid fire, you basically say rapid fire so that the artist finishes up quickly and get out of here. We have too much studio time. I'm just joking. Of
All
course.
right. So, okay. Your favorite musician from the independent scene?
My most favorite, I think I've already mentioned Anirudh Ravi because of his songwriting, and it's incredible. If we were to go back in time, I grew up listening to Thermal and a Quarter. I grew up listening to Junkyard Groove. I grew up listening to Mother Jane. So there's a lot of acts from then that have played a huge role in my perception of what music is and what indie music is. Currently, apart from Anirudh Ravi, I would say, interestingly, both the names that I'm thinking of also starts with A. One is Arifa Rebello, who recently performed here in Bangalore. Beautiful songwriter. I don't think she has released enough songs for people to know how good she is
Okay.
as a songwriter and as a musician. So I'm excited for her music to come out And also Alvin Presley from Chennai. Absolutely wonderful singer-songwriter, beautiful producer, guitarist. So, these three are probably some of my favorite musicians in the indie scene right now.
All right. So, okay, a show that changed your life. Now, by this, I mean you as a performer
Yeah.
as well,
Yeah.
and a band that you went to watch and you were like, wow, this is incredible.
Beautiful. The first one, the gig that was like life changing or quite the experience at least, was back in 2016. I guess I performed at this festival called Into the Void. I was actually performing there with Blushing Satellite as well as a solo singer songwriter. This happened in the middle of the Run of Kutch desert in Gujarat, and literally we were put up in tent city. The tent city is like hundreds of tents, and which are very fancy on the inside. Like, they have a bed, they have like, there's a back zip. If you open, you go into another tent with like hot shower, fun fancy toilet and sink and all of that.
Okay.
It was quite fascinating. I'd never been in a place like that. And the gig, the stage itself was in the middle of the desert where if you look at any direction, you just see vast openness. And performing during sunset, looking at like infinity, if you will, was like probably one of the most incredible experiences that I've had playing music. I think it's a very rare thing. And I'm very happy that I got to do that gig. As far as a gig that changed me, I would say this was a long time ago. And this was Bryan Adams when he came to Palace Grounds. I think I was like 8th or 9th grade then.
Okay.
And I listening to like, classics like, like Summer of 69, Everything I Do, all of these sort of songs, which I've heard as I was growing up. But to listen to it live and to listen and to see thousands of people around you, I think that was quite an experience, because I'd never been to a gig with that many people before. And I think that was really something that changed my perspective of being a musician, what a musician is, what
Yeah.
they do in life and whatnot. So I would probably pick that.
Great. And Bryan Adams is still rocking, man.
Tell me about it.
Amazing.
Still killing it.
And he has re-released his songs.
Yeah.
Few of the classics.
Sure.
And I don't think he's gone into a way to make it sound different, unique. No, it's the same thing.
Beautiful.
But there is a definite sonic texture that is a
Sure.
little different.
Sure.
And I do enjoy both versions.
Totally, right.
I might listen to
Should
the
check it
older
out.
version and listen to this.
Yeah.
It's little it's
Isn't that strange? Like back in the day, like that, if we consider both of us, like when we were younger, there might be some songs that we might have not heard for 10 years, but if it plays, we will know every word of that song.
True.
Right?
True.
So pop music, the idea of pop music now is so, like it has changed so much that, it almost puts a bad impression on pop music of the 2000s era.
Yeah.
Because, I feel like there was some very musical stuff, very engaging stuff, very diverse stuff, very beautiful music that used to be on the radio at all points of time.
Correct.
So I'm glad we're talking about Bryan Adams, because I feel like, for certain people, talking about Summer of 69 and Everything I Do might be an embarrassing thing for certain musicians. But for me, it's like, man, that made me who I am. I'm glad I listened to it at the time that I did.
And if you talk about the way the records were sounding back then,
Yep.
it is even till date they are so it's like perfect. I
Exactly.
wouldn't want to change a thing about it. It's
Exactly.
like that.
Absolutely.
And I think that is because so much of time and effort is spent on
Right.
just the art itself.
Correct.
Not just the the singer, not just the guitarist, but the mix engineer.
Absolutely. Yeah.
It's
It was quite
crazy.
every musical project was quite a journey. These days, I feel like
It's
every musical
yeah.
project is for the end point that you are reaching to
Yeah.
release it
Yes.
and then see what
yes,
happens
yes,
with
Yes. I think music should definitely grow organically
Sure.
because that will have. I think that is a reality check for you.
it. I agree with you.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Coming back to
Yep.
two more questions.
Yep.
An international artist that you want to collaborate with.
Um, it's too easy for me to say John Mayer or Damien Rice because they're my biggest musical influences, or at least as a songwriter. But I would love to collaborate with Wolfpack or Antoine Stanley, the singer of Wolfpack, in his stuff, or Theo Katzman. I'm a huge fan of all of them. Joe Dart playing his bass on one of my songs. These are like kind of the dreams that I have beyond the real world dreams, if you will. But I would say, anybody from the band Wolfpack, even the guest artists like Monica Martin and people like that. But another big artist that I would love to collaborate, and it will be just like my life would be complete, would be Yeba. And Yeba she is one of the best singers of all time, in my opinion. And her recent album, recent relatively, it's been a couple of years now, Distance, was really one of my most favorite pieces of sounds that
Okay.
I've heard. So yeah, I would put Wolfpack, Gang, and Yeba in for that answer.
Okay, cool, great. So Mahesh, thank you so much for spending your time
Thank you
with
so
us.
much for having me. Appreciate it,
Great.
dude. It's been a while having seen you, and I'm glad we could catch up.
Yes,
and we could talk about this.
We're looking forward for your EP releases and your album.
Yep.
And please let us know so that we can talk about it.
I will absolutely do that. Thank you
Awesome.
for all your help.
Thank you so
I'll
much.
see you next time.
All right.
Bye. Why did I end the show? Thank you so much. See you next time. Take care. I will see you soon.
And that was the video, guys. I hope you guys enjoyed watching. It was a great conversation and I really enjoyed every bit of it. So hit the like button, share, subscribe, and press the bell icon. We will see you in the next episode. Bye.